2020. And I call the commission meeting to order. Trina, could you do a roll call?
Mayor Hill,
Here?
Commissioner Tankersley,
Here.
Commissioner Gormley,
Here.
Commissioner Fuchs,
I see him. He's muted though.
There you
Here.
go.
I figured out the
Got it.
computer.
Hey, Pat, how are you?
Doing well, at peace.
and Commissioner Christensen is excused.
Thank you, Trina. That takes us to our consent agenda this evening. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Are there any commissioners that would like to take anything off of our consent agenda this evening?
I was thinking about adding something to the consent agenda. About the credit cards.
What's that?
We add the credit cards to the consent agenda?
If you read your regular, Ed,
And so with not hearing anything being taken off the consent agenda, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a
Second.
Been moved by Ed and seconded by Tom. All in favor, please
Patrick
indicate.
seconded.
What's that?
Patrick seconded.
Patrick seconded it.
Tom seconded. It's okay.
And you'd think that I'd be able to see by the yellow box around your face, Patrick. But
That's all right.
all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by saying nay? The consent agenda this evening passes unanimously, and that would be 4-0. Thank you. That takes us to the accounting and payable reports, and that's just for our perusal. Let's go down to consultant, and we have our consultant report. Brent, you're on the line if you'd like to address the commission.
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Well, good evening. 2019 septic sales, 720-721 road sale is completely wrapped up, including project work. So next step on that sale will be reforestation, which is scheduled for January. For this year's sales, the 107 road sales complete. Got a few straggling salvage loads coming in for that sale, but to date they've shipped roughly 265 loads to Frank Lumber and a few other destinations. And you can see we came out real good on that sale as far as the volume and value cutout. The Boundary 300 Bald Mountain Road sale, 2 of the 3 units are complete, and they had started cutting on the Boundary Road unit, and they're not currently active due to fire danger, which was particularly dicey last week when I wrote the letter. Things have settled in a little bit, and Lule Timber had a lot of issues even within their company because they all live up in that Mahama Mill City area. They didn't, nobody in their company lost their home, but they were real close. So they're getting some things put back together. They did lose a machine up by Detroit, and they look to get back out there on that sale this week. Actually, for a few days, we went from level 3 fire precaution level at Minville to a level 4. And now they've gone back to level 3. Between the time I wrote this letter and today, it went from 3 to 4 back to 3. They mostly went to 4 just because of limited resources with ODF as those fires ramped up last week. So the dust is settling. Frank did not lose their mill. You might have heard that. Frank and Ferris's mill up around Mill City Lions were, all the fires were, they lost a lot of their timberlands, but to the fire, but not the actual mill. So talking to Jeff Frank, they're looking to start bringing logs in again soon. Trying to sort out the power situation and some things, but they're in pretty good shape compared to some folks. And so they'll resume that final unit until it's done here, I believe later this week. Project work on the 2020 sales is ongoing. And, as of last week, even when it was at level 3, they had pretty much self-imposed shutdown due to the extreme fire danger and the low humidity and so on. So no operations are active at this time. And we'll look forward to getting going here soon. So that's what I got. Any questions?
Any
I'm
questions?
glad to hear about Frank. That was good.
Yeah, you bet.
Brent, can you stay with us until we go through the BLM stuff?
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
Okay.
Okay. Our next item is appearance request, and I see none. Staff reports, I see none. That takes us to old business. And the first item under old business is the amendment to the BLM right-of-way agreement. And Sam, I'll turn that over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The memo you see in front of you, it summarizes a little bit at the beginning, kind of a little bit of the history. We've been speaking or talking with BLM for over a year about amendments to the BLM right-of-way agreement. Of course, I think one of our meetings a couple of months ago, we went through kind of extensive history of that kind of back and forth with BLM. About a week and a half ago, I was up in the watershed with Brent and with Mr. Burke. We went through and toured the Section 7 area that's adjacent to the Clutch Play BLM sale. We also toured up around what BLM calls the Little Bit sale up in Section 33. And at that time, BLM was requesting rights over lands in Section 33. So we were speaking with Mr. Keller quite a bit about what that would cost to build a road into that sale and whether that would be feasible for us to do in order to maintain road rights in Section 33. At that time, I think Mr. Keller had talked with BLM, with their engineer, with their real estate person, and BLM was at that time considering its options of not going over water and light land, or not going over new property it doesn't already have rights to, and just going up straight out of the south from property that BLM already has rights to on water and light, which would not require any amendment to the right-of-way agreement. And my understanding is from the communication that we've seen back from BLM is they've chosen to do that they chose, instead of going with the plan of kind of looping around onto new water and light property, to just continue up on their own property off of water and light property. You can see that map is in your packet, the Little Bit timber sale, which is what I'm referring to. And it shows in Section 33 that black dotted line is actually on Water and Light Road. That's a Water and Light Road. That's over property that BLM has rights to under the right-of-way agreement under the original 1974 document. And then it goes north up to into their property, which is in that yellow and green area, which is putting them into BLM property. The road actually goes on to BLM for a little bit and then comes back onto Water and Light. But the red line that just goes straight up is James and Brent and I looked at that. Apparently the BLM engineer feels like they can just go straight up that hill and avoid looping to the, I guess that's to the east, and trying to circle around onto Water and Light and get access. But in any event, there's that. And then the page before, there's also a map you see of the Clutch Play timber sale, which is in Section 7 of Township 3, Range 5. And I think, as the commission has heard before, there's really two ways into that sale. There's a way from the north. There's a road in from the north. There's also the 107 road, which can bring a party in from the west. And BLM's preference is to get road rights from Water and Light across Water and Light property to access that property from the west. What they're telling us now is they intend to apparently remove culverts on the road to the north and make it unpassable for vehicles. And so that's what their plan is there. This is also what they describe in their environmental assessment, which they published. It was over a year ago is when they published the environmental assessment. So this is consistent with that plan of using this access from the west. As part of the 107 sale, Mr. Keller, as part of the 107 sales, Mr. Keller can describe a road was built into that section, kind of up to the line. So that's a road now is a Waterline Road, and what's being proposed in the amendment is an amendment to the schedule number 2, which would add that road. And not the lands, just the road, which remains under the control of Waterlight, to the right-of-way agreement. So that's kind of what's being proposed and what's in front of you today. I think BLM intends to put those sales up early next year, and I guess we're looking for a direction from the commission, whether the commission is ready at this time to consider this as an amendment.
Sam, do you want to talk about what Waterlight gets in exchange?
Oh, sure. That's a good point. In exchange, what Waterlight is going to get is Waterlight's going to get access across the length of the access road. As the commission's been aware, Waterlight has not had access rights on the commission road except for limited rights in section 15 up near the AB road. So you can see there's actually, if you go to the end of the documents in this section, it's 54, page 54 of my packet. I don't know if you have those page numbers or not, but there is an overall map of the end of the amendment number 4 that shows the entire picture. And you can see the black dotted line, which takes off from the end of Meadow Lake Road, which is a county road. Loops up into section 30 or 13 a little bit, goes south through section 13 into section 24. Then it juts across section 14 into section 15. As we exist today, Waterlight has limited rights on the access road from easements. It has a small easement right or a limited easement right in section 13, that little curly Q up in the middle of section 13, that before it drops down into the yellow section, we've got rights on that through an easement. Waterlight also has existing easement rights kind of in the middle of section 15. There's kind of that boomerang segment there in the middle of section 13. And then we have rights that cross over to the AB road. So what we'd be gaining in this amendment number 4 is we'd be gaining access rights along the entire length of the access road from the end of the county road all the way to the end of section 15. Yes.
First of all, it sounds like you guys have made huge progress in it. I'm really pleased. I have a couple of little questions. One of them is the BLM sort of made some noise about a trespass claim on that road. I think that you talked about that Brent had.
Right.
Does that go away? That claim go away?
Well, we can certainly confirm that in going and returning back to BLM. My impression was they really weren't particularly excited about pursuing that with us. I mean, it was sort of a the impression I got, and maybe John can maybe inform us more, but the impression I got was that if we were agreeable to this deal on the 107 road, that trespass claim would go away.
That was my impression too.
I would like that in writing from them, please.
Okay.
And then the second thing is, we don't need to go beyond the west line of section 15, right? A lot, because I assume that the Nestucca access road goes farther.
Yeah, and maybe that's a Brent question.
No, we don't need to go past that. I mean, it goes clear out to Beaver down to 101, but the road, that's as far as we'd need it. That additional blue you see there is like the old Meadow Lake bed, so that's technically owned by Waterlight, but we wouldn't need any access out there.
If we needed to get out there, like to manage our fish ladder or something like that we'd put in, does that road to the north of the blue, do we have a right to go on that road?
I'm not familiar with that road. Not sure if that's even BLM there.
Oh, okay.
And Tom, were you talking about what is called the Dyes Estates Road? That
Well, I
little,
see that that's there, but see, there's a road that is just west of where the Dye Estates Road goes off to the north.
okay,
Goes along the north side of that blue area.
yeah.
I think that's a road, isn't it, Brent?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that road.
Okay. But we don't have any, we're not gonna be able to harvest timber in the Meadow Lake bed because it's a fish spawning area now, right?
That's right.
Okay, okay. I'm very happy with this then, with that one confirmation in writing that we don't have to mess around with that trespass claim.
Okay.
And I really appreciate the job that Brent and the staff have done to get this down to something that's a win-win for both of us and not, well, I'll just say it that way.
Yep. No, I think it's a super agreement. It's what we wanted in the beginning. So I think it's a good deal.
Tom, do you want that information in advance of us passing the resolution?
No, I guess I would move to adopt the resolution conditioned on BLM, mayor and the clerk can sign condition on BLM confirming that if this resolution is signed, then they'll confirm that there is no trespass claim in Brent or what that is.
So would you be okay if I get an email back from their district manager on that?
Sure.
So that we would just have it in writing, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah,
it
my
doesn't have to be
understanding,
in the
yeah.
agreement.
Yeah, my understanding is totally a discretionary call with their district manager. I think Brent can,
Yeah, and they benefit, I mean, they benefit from what was done, right?
Yes.
oh, right.
So
Okay,
I'm okay.
Okay, Trina, what resolution number is this?
It's number 22.
And so Sam, would you read this resolution 2020-22 by title only?
Yes. This is resolution 2020-22, a resolution by the city of McMinnville, a municipal corporation, state of Oregon, acting by and through its Water and Light Commission, authorizing and approving amendment number 4 to right-of-way and road use agreement and ONC logging road right-of-way permit between Water and Light and the United States of America Bureau of Land Management.
Any further discussion? Okay.
So I make the motion that I discussed before.
And do we have a second?
Second.
And so it's been moved by Tom, seconded by Ed. Trina, do we do a poll on this? Go ahead.
Okay, Mayor Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes?
Commissioner Gormley,
Yes.
and Commissioner Fuchs.
Yes.
Be it that resolution 2020-22 passes unanimously 4-0. Thank you, Sam and Brent, for the good work on this.
Good job.
You bet. Thanks a lot.
Uh-huh. Let's move to our next item, which is our credit card follow-up discussion. And I don't see John on the line. So John Deeps, are you going to take that? Or is
Yeah,
Mark?
Mark and I will take that. So I believe there was a couple questions from the last meeting. One was, I think Tom had asked a question about the dollars, which John has provided in the chart on page 2 and 3. Also, there was a question about other utilities, which is in the chart on page 3. And then I would also add that what we looked at is we looked at utilities that were comparable to us. So for example, a utility that would be more comparable would be like Canby, Forest Grove, and Salem Electric that were compact systems, to see what their percentage of credit cards take of their total payments versus total dollars and total payments percentage.
So we have the information in front of us. And so I will just kind of open it up for discussion. with John and Mark answering our questions. So commissioners, any questions on the additional work that has been presented before us?
I have one quick question. Are we still thinking we would only hire a half-time customer service rep
Correct.
if we did this?
Yes.
Ed or
Well-
Pat, go ahead, Ed or Patrick, any thoughts?
So in that chart, I thought I saw that we're the only one who does a fee model, and all the rest, including the red highlighted, have a no fee model or cover the charge. And I saw that $1.25 charge was covered by the utility. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yes.
Well, Patrick convinced me that, given the dollars are close, this is what our customers expect, and it looks like it will not be imposing, based on what staff gave us, any kind of a measurable almost burden on the other customers who don't use credit cards. So, Patrick, you've convinced me, so I'm prepared to go forward with this.
But I also appreciate your, focus on making sure that all customer classes are treated fairly. And so, to me, I think that has been such an important part of this discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been an ongoing discussion, and I think we've had learnings along the way that bring us to where we are this evening. So if I'm not mistaken, all we need to do this evening, if the commission is in agreement, is give a nod to Mark to move forward, and then take that back to John. So any further discussion?
So
Well,
motion's not necessary? I thought,
Is-
Well, we'll be coming back to the commission with the agreements.
okay.
So
Are the credit card charges part of our rate schedule?
you mean with NISC?
No, our rate schedule with our customers, that we are published rate schedule.
Published rate schedule.
No, I do
Okay.
not believe so. Correct, Mark?
Yeah, I believe they are.
Okay, so we don't have to change that rate schedule. Okay.
Correct. Yes. So what we'll do is we'll start moving forward on the hiring process for a part-time FTE, and we will bring the agreements back that we need the commission to approve.
Perfect.
Before we hang up on this item, this is interesting. We're in September of 2020, and I'm trying to think the first time we were broached by Wes Thomas, if I remember right, Tom.
I think it was in Ed, but I'm not sure.
Anyway, what's so interesting is the cost today compared to how it might have been 15 years ago. It's just pretty fascinating. So anyway, nice job with the presentation, and I know we've been very resistant, but we got you covered now. So thank you.
It makes
Thank
sense.
you.
Great, everyone. Thank you. And again, we've given direction to staff. We've got about 4 minutes. I'm wondering if we can drop down under new business to item number C, Sam, the MEDP board appointment of John to their board, and then that'll take us to 5:30.
Sam, unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm back. MED is asking that the commission consider reappointing General Manager John Dietz to the board of MEDP. I think the memorandum is hopefully relatively self-explanatory. He's been on the board for the last, I believe, 2 years.
So Sam, have you talked to John to make sure he really wants to do this?
No, I have not talked to John. He's not told me he does not want to do it.
You probably should counsel him a little bit and bring it back to us in a year or so, or anyway. I think John's doing a great job, John. Thank you for the work you're doing.
So I move that we reappoint John Dietz as the Water and Light representative on the MEDP board.
Do I have a second?
Patrick?
Second.
And so We have a motion by Tom, a second by Patrick. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? So this resolution passes 4-0. I think we will just take a.
How about the extension of the COVID? That's kind of a housekeeping issue, isn't it?
It really is. So go ahead, John Dietz, if you would take us through the COVID update and extension of emergency declaration.
Sure. So as you can see in the staff report, continuing to waive fees, probably I would say the largest item is we have one customer off right now. That customer, we believe, has abandoned that location because when we went to disconnect, there was no one in the house, but someone living in a tent in the yard. So far, I think we have done about 25 disconnects. This is probably the only, this is the only one that we've had that was a long-term disconnect.
And no, does the 25 have reconnected though?
Yes, and made arrangements with us or talked to YCAP or gone to St. Vincent.
Okay.
So I think staff is asking for an extension of the resolution, the declaration of emergency, basically with the same conditions that we're under right now.
I'd so move if motion's in order.
And that would take us to October 21st, 2020. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, and this is a resolution, it's number 2020-23, resolution by the City of McMinnville Municipal Corporation of the State of Oregon acting by and through its Water and Light Commission declaring and extending a state of emergency with regard to operation of the water and light plants of the City of McMinnville.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, and so Trina, will you poll us on resolution 2020-23?
Yes. Mayor Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gormley,
Yes.
Commissioner Fuchs,
Yes.
and Commissioner Christensen just joined us, but since she wasn't here for this entire discussion, we will pull her on the next agenda item.
Thank you, Trina. The resolution 2020-23 passes unanimously 4-0. Jody, welcome. We know you've been working outrageous hours and it's good to have you with us. So again, with that being said, it takes us, we're at 5:30 right now on September 15th, 2020, and this time has been scheduled for a public hearing on water rates and charges. As mayor, I'm the presiding officer and I will conduct the hearing, impose reasonable time limits on participants, and receive documents and reports into the hearing record. At today's hearing, the commission expects to hear a staff report. And during the staff report, I may recognize other members of the commission to ask questions of the staff. After the staff report, interested parties will be invited to comment. Before commenting, please state your name and address for the record. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the governor's executive order related to social distancing, our meeting tonight is being held in digital form on Zoom. Since this is a unique and new medium format, I will provide an overview of some of the important procedural items to ensure that the meeting runs smoothly for everyone that is participating. Any interested party that has joined the Zoom meeting is automatically set to be on mute and to have their video displays hidden. At the appropriate time during the meeting, I will ask those in attendance whether they would like to speak. When this occurs, please select the raise hand option from your device. This can be accessed by hovering your mouse or cursor over the lower part of your screen where the toolbar will pop up. From this toolbar, select participants. This will open another toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. From that toolbar on the right, you can select raise hand at the bottom of the participants toolbar. When you have selected a raise hand, the staff person managing the meeting, Trina, will know that you would like to speak. I will give adequate time for these points during the meeting to ensure that we capture everyone that would like to speak. Now, if you're having difficulty raising your hand using the feature, you may also use the chat feature to type and state that you would like to speak. This will be monitored by staff during the meeting. If using the chat feature, please note your name and address and confirm that you wish to comment on the water rates. If you are calling in via phone and do not have access to Zoom, the Zoom meeting video and toolbar, please wait until I ask if there's anyone on the phone who would like to address the commission. I will make sure that everyone who wants to participate in the public hearing has the opportunity to do so. The commission may have questions for interested parties who speak during the meeting. Staff will be offered an opportunity for a final comment. And finally, the commission will deliberate and consider the proposed resolution and attached rate schedule. Okay, any questions from anyone that is on the any of our commissioners?
No.
Hearing none, then we'll go ahead and begin the public hearing. And so I open the public hearing this evening, and we'll call on Mr. Mark Dunmeyer, who will begin with the staff report. Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So before you this evening, staff report provides information about the third year of the rate design that was done by UFS back in 2018. The third year is provided in a way to give you an indication of how different timing of the application of the rate increase, if it were to be done, how that would impact or affect the fiscal year 2021 budget projection that was done through the last budget process. So, so included with the staff report is the rate design that was done by UFS. That's the 4th page of the PDF. It has a kind of a highlighting box around the year 3 rate increases. They in aggregate are projected to be a 3% increase. The consumption is a little less at 2.4, and then the different meter size charges are a bit higher, and that's where the 3% comes in, the kind of the combined total of those. Also included, like I mentioned, is the analysis and its effect on the budget. That's on pages 5 through 7, or I guess it'd be 5 and 6. Then there's some cost assumption drivers related to capital projects that are proposed for out in the future. That's on page 7. And then rate comparison information for both our current rates as they compare to other utilities, and then also the proposed 3% rate increase and how that looks also compared to the other utilities. And then water rate change schedules, draft versions of those redlined. So you can see the changes, and then the resolution that would include the rate schedules with those increases included in them. Again, this is all the resolution and the rate schedules have a January 1st, 2021 effective date, simply from staff's analysis of the rate increase. But that certainly is at the discretion of the commission, so to change that. I did want to note that on pages, again, 5 and 6, this in the PDF, this would be the water budget analysis with the rate design for year 3 included. And then also the future increases included in the budget. There's a column all the way to the right of those charts, total change, and it shows a dollar amount. On the October 1st of 2020, that total change is 1.2 million. And then it decreases as you go down to the other, down the other charts. That actually is incorrect. What I did there is I took the change each year and added that as the cumulative. But what I failed to recognize is that that cumulative change is actually included in each year. And so Thad has an updated version of this, and if Thad, you can bring that up, that will explain what I'm talking about. If you can scroll to the next page for us. There you go. So what you'll see on this is the column to the far right now showing that total change or cumulative change at 468,000 in the first example on October 1st, 2020. And you can see there's an extra row that I have at the bottom that shows the year-to-year change in cash. And so you can see in that last fiscal year, 23-24, that 468,100. Well, that includes all the prior year changes in cash as well. So it's a cumulative number. So anyway, this is what I would submit as part of the record for the discussion, the public hearing, rather than what I submitted earlier. I just wanted to make this correction. So.
And Mark, are we going to get the updated pages to put into our packet if we hold on to that, in that it's a rate change?
Yes.
Okay.
So with that information, would maybe open it up to questions.
Okay, Mark, thank you for that report and updating those financials for us. Commission questions of staff at this point. And again, just to remind staff, we've been through, this is not our first opportunity. We've gone through this with the Utility Financial Solutions and Mark Beauchamp many times, but Jody, this may be your first time of going through this. And so I think, again, any questions that you might have or things that may not be tracking for you, I don't mean to call you out, but again, I think many of us have been through this. So I'll just ask you, any concerns as you're looking at the report, Jody?
No, thank you. I appreciate the thorough description. I'm very familiar with these kinds of reports, so I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of commission to the staff?
So just to confirm, those percentages were planned long ago, and it actually looks like in outgoing years, they decrease to try to mitigate. So we're kind of at the peak of the increases and then they tail off in subsequent years.
So the increases in the rate design remain at 3% through the duration of the design. So in 23-24, you don't see a rate increase simply because the rate design only goes out to 22-23.
I thought I saw like a 2.4 and then a
oh yeah
1, and then it tailed off.
That's true. On the consumption charge, yeah, the consumption charge does decrease slightly over the course of the rate design, and then correspondingly there's a slight change in some of the meter size charges. So the net effect maintains at 3% in total across
But
the
this,
rate
but
design.
the point is, this is what the plan has been all along, and this is what we got from the rate designers, and this is what, we've been working on for years.
Yes.
While
I did-
also, go ahead, Jody.
No, I was just going to ask, as to kind of riff off what you were just saying, how, at what point in this, is it a 5-year horizon on this? Okay. At what point does this rate study occur again in this scenario that you have ahead of us? Is it 2 years out or?
Yeah, this is year 3, so there's 2 more years remaining.
And
So-
so at what point would you start the next series of discussions around the next study?
We haven't discussed that.
Okay, thank you.
But typically, it's every 2 years, so it will be in 21.
You're on mute, Jody.
Thank you. So it's kind of a rolling study that happens? If it's done every 2 years, you said?
Yes,
Okay,
we do it every 2 years. It's tied into the cycle of the BPA rate cycle. So they do a 2-year rate cycle. So we're tied into that rate cycle with them.
great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
A question for staff also, that we are doing these increases to ensure that we have sufficient cash reserves, as well as I saw in the documentation, to ensure that we can get that, inlet on the Willamette River and get the, make sure that we plan for and have the capital necessary to get that other water treatment plant built as well.
Correct.
Yes. Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jody, we, to, I guess, true it up or prove the model, we need to keep it, checking on constantly. So every 2 years, we've been checking it to make sure that it's working properly and that we are recovering everything we need. My question is for Mark. Mark, you mentioned a chart showing us in comparison. I thought you said with the new rates, and I only see one unless I've not got to the right spot. Are there 2 of the?
Page 8, Ed.
You can't see it. And it says residential water bill comparison is the last, it's right before the actual rate schedule with the red in it.
Okay, okay, well, I thought he said there was one that had the new rates. Is this the new rates or the old rates?
So at the bottom where it says McMinnville, mine shows one of them.
Okay, all right, I'm with you. Okay, I didn't clean it that quick. Okay, thank you.
And we don't change positions on that comparison. We just go up a bit, but we're still the third lowest compared to our comparisons.
So we go up $1.12, it looks like, so.
Yeah.
So
Okay, thank you.
a couple of things. First of all, to make sure I understand the chart correctly, I'm looking at the water budget analysis with and without the rate design increases. As I look at this, and tell me if I'm not I'm correct, for fiscal year 2021, which is the one coming up, if we don't have the increase, we will have an operating loss. The cost of selling the water, which would not include timber revenues, of almost $154,000, where this rate increase will cut that loss to $124,000. And then in the subsequent years, it becomes actually positive until the last year of the system. So one of the things this does is make sure that we sell water for what it costs us to produce it, right?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Always been the goal.
Well, not always.
No, I mean, that was our goal in setting this up 5 years ago.
There's a time when we didn't get there. The other thing is, and we have timber revenues, but those timber revenues, we put them away and then we use them for major capital improvements like raising the dam or this backup system on the Willamette. And because of that, unlike most other water utilities, we don't have any debt. We don't have any debt service payments. We don't have the costs of dealing with staying within our loan covenants and such. So that's why, so it seems appropriate to us, and it has in the commission for a long time, I think, to look at and make sure that we run the utility on the water side and also the power side, but the water side here in a way that we pay for, our customers pay for what they get. We don't want them to overpay. And then we go through this process every 2 or 3 years. We've been doing that for about 10 or 15 years, I think now, where we look at what it costs to serve different classes of customers. And when we do that, that's why you have some higher rate increases for your meter charge versus the rate for the per gallon charge or per cubic foot charge. And that's because if you have a larger meter, you have to have more infrastructure available to give you water, even if you don't use it. So this is something that our consultants are really good at figuring out what this costs, and that's why we do that. And we try to keep things within a 10% margin of the cost of serving is what we charge our in-city customers. Is that correct, staff?
Yeah, it's well described.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess to Tom's point, though, it's very important for us to at least be close on the operating side so that we're not having to scramble in the future. And that's what I like about this, is that we are not having to then worry about subsidizing or pulling timber revenue just to keep the system running. And I think it's so important to make sure you're operating prudently, on your net income side, and not getting digging some hole for yourself.
And Patrick, to that same point, I think it allows our customer base to look out over a 5-year period and understand that there is going to be a rate increase, and they can, as best as they can, be aware of that. And I think it's the prudent thing to do. And then having us review this every 2 years, it brings us back and makes sure that our assumptions are correct.
And a good point, Mayor, in that you want to do it in a way that people can plan or not have rate shock. And I think we've done well in that over the years, is to not, dig that hole and then you have a rate shock for folks that can not as easily deal with it.
Well, and I think Tom did such a good job of explaining that, we have purchased water rights off of the Willamette, and we just have finished that second purchase that allows us, if I'm not mistaken, 10 million gallons to be possibly being taken out of the Willamette. But that would be shocker. It would be a rate shocker price tag if we then went out to build the capacity of pulling that out of the river within a 2 to 3 year period. We're now spreading that over many, many years so that we can absorb that and do it appropriately.
And as I remember the presentation from our rate consultant, he looked at it and said, yeah, you need to plan for it, you need to put money aside, but we shouldn't collect everything in rates for that whole system. Now we should actually, we get to the point where we think that's going to happen and we estimate the cost, there ought to be some money needed to be borrowed, because it's not appropriate to make today's customers pay for all of that. So, and we talked about that, and we thought about it, and I think it's really important that the record reflect that we are planning ahead, but we're trying to do it in a way that's fair to existing customers, today's customers, and to customers 20 and 50 years ahead, which is what we learned from our predecessors on the commission.
Totally agree.
Go ahead.
No more questions here.
Okay, Patrick, any questions?
No, sir, I'm good.
Jody and Tom?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, With that, then that completes our commission questions of staff. And this takes us to the point where interested parties that may have questions. And so we'll start with to confirm that the staff are there any raised hands in Zoom, Trina?
I do not have any raised hands right now. I do see that Councillor Adam Garvin has joined the meeting. So Councillor Garvin, if you are interested in speaking during the public comment portion, if you could use the raise your hand feature down at the bottom of your screen. We'll also give you one final chance and we'll ask you to unmute if you would like to comment during the public comment period. That's the only person that we have as a participant in the meeting right now. I did receive some written comment about 15 minutes before the meeting started. So Sam, should I read that entire communication into the record?
Well, how long is it?
That's about 7 paragraphs.
Okay, well, ultimately, it's I will punt this to the mayor. The mayor's in control of the meeting and decides what gets in the record. I think that's I don't know if it's something that could be. I don't know if that could be shared on the screen. Probably too much
Could
for
you
that.
share screen on that, Trina, so that we could glance at it?
I'd like to hear it, and I think it's quicker just for Trina to hear. I think if somebody took the trouble to write, we ought to listen to it. So.
Okay. So let's do this first. Councillor Garvin, Adam, do you have any comments, or you just listening to the proceedings of the public hearing this evening?
No comments, Mayor and Commission. I just was tuning in to kind of understand your methodology and where we're at with rates and the increases ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. We appreciate you being on the line. So Trina, would you go ahead, Ed?
A note that popped up that there was a phone number, like a 221 number. Trina, did they jump in?
Yes, I saw that too, but it went right off. So we didn't even get to the point to allow them into the meeting, but I saw that as well. And I've been looking for it, but it hasn't come back.
Okay, thank you.
If that person's watching the meeting, they should call you back, right, Trina?
Yes, yep.
And so Trina, if you would go ahead and just read into the record the piece that has been sent to you, and then we'll be watching for that other interested individual if they might come back and want to address us. So go ahead.
Sure. The comments that I received were submitted by Brittany Ruiz. She is as a resident in McMinnville Ward number 2. And these comments were submitted via email at 4:44 p.m. today. Good evening, Mac Water and Light Commission. I am emailing my public comment and hoping that it makes it into consideration before the meeting. With the fires happening, COVID-19 and back to school, I can only imagine the pressure on other families and also single families. I spent some time speaking with John Dietz, discussing a lot of wonderful aspects of Mac Water and Light. One of those aspects was that Mac Water and Light just finished the infrastructure to get Lafayette on McMinnville Water. Now billing will be expanded to them. This represents thousands of more households, which should have reduced the overall cost, not increase it. When asking about the fee increase and reviewing the minutes from the last fee increase meeting, it's apparent that the reason for the increase is to support a recommendation made by a consultant. This suggestion does not take into consideration the current situation we all face. The demographics, many families have either been out of work and some haven't gotten unemployment yet, which is devastating. Some families are not returning to work because they are being required to homeschool their children. This takes a 2 household income down to 1. Clarification of issues I would like to try to understand and get addressed before any fee increase is approved. Please let us know why, with significant surplus and reserves, we are raising the costs. More specifically, 1, I would like to understand who paid for the infrastructure to Lafayette. Did McMinnville residents pay for that with the last fee increase? What arrangement was made by the city of Lafayette to pay for that infrastructure? 2, it appears that Mac Water and Light's biggest budget increase is PERS. I would like to understand what is being done to make sure we're being mindful of all the resources available to cover that PERS deficit. And whether A, fixing how PERS is funded and managed versus relying on B, raising fees on residents to fix the shortfalls. As a small business owner, chamber member, and also an active member of the community, I think it would be a poor decision on part of the commission to approve an increase without A, publicly addressing the above points, but also B, the potential impacts to the community. I highly suggest and recommend that the commission table this discussion until the new year, once we know the uncertainties of tomorrow have been identified. Brittany Ruiz.
Thank you, Trina, for writing that, reading that to us. I'll also just let you know that Brittany is a current candidate for Ward 2 race on City Council, just so that you have a full feel of who she is. Ed?
I don't know if this is appropriate, Sam, at this point, but I think out of courtesy, a response should be generated to her, and basically her points that she's made. We can respond to them and provide the information she's requested in that. And either do it under your signature or John's or the chairman's signature. But it would be appropriate that we respond, I think, in writing at some point.
And Ed, I think that our discussion prior to reading her statement, many of her issues were addressed, I think, completely in the discussions that we had prior to this.
I would agree, just as a courtesy, I think.
Yes.
We should do that.
So I think that we ought to consider this input before we make a decision. And so my question, I guess, is for Sam, is where does our consideration of this and discussing it and asking questions of staff about this fit in the process of having this public hearing?
Well, it would fit in your deliberation process. The process is you first hear a staff report, then you have a chance to talk, to ask questions of staff, then you hear from interested parties and can ask questions of interested parties, although she's not appearing in the meeting. Ideally, you would have had this material well before the meeting, so you could have considered it as part of the written record. But it's kind of in the oral record now. She's chosen not to appear in the public meeting, so you can't ask questions of her. But it would be appropriate for you to, in your deliberations, to consider her comments along with the staff report and the other materials when you make a decision.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. And I don't see that the phone caller has come back on. Trina, do you?
Nope, I don't have any other participants besides Councilor Garvin.
So excuse me just for a second to be sure that that wasn't just a spam call or something. Trina, can you repeat how that person would call in, please? So if they're listening to this and trying to get in.
Sure. Yeah, for anyone trying to call in to provide public comment during this public hearing, you can dial 253-215-8782. When you're prompted for the meeting ID, you can enter 862979168865, followed by pound. The password for the meeting is 130351#.
And Trina, is that on the notice of meeting or something where somebody could easily see that? Because there's a lot of numbers there.
Yes, the instructions for joining the meeting were included in the public notice that was published in the News Register. And the meeting ID and password was also included in the public notice that's published on our website.
Okay, so somebody could go to our website right now and find that and know how to get into the meeting. Is that right?
Correct.
And what's our website, please?
Our website is mc-power.com.
Great, thank you.
And Tom, thank you for the thoroughness of us going back over that. As Sam had indicated, we're to a point where we can have staff give their final comment, and then we have commission deliberation. So why don't we go to the staff final comment and see if any calls continue in, because we could take that call in before we have commission deliberation. So Mark, go ahead, Tom.
Councilor Garvin appears to have raised his hand. The note on my computer says I think he wants to say something.
Yeah, I was just curious when this rate effect would, or when this rate increase would take effect, if it's the next billing cycle or where it falls in your fiscal year, and then if what the effect would be on your guys' budget if you table this rate increase until midpoint in your fiscal year. I realize staying whole and ratepayers paying their way for the product they're getting. Just given the times, I wasn't sure how much of a burden that would put on the budget if you guys delayed it for a few months.
So Mark, if you could answer that for Councilor Garvin.
So yes, so the rate increase as proposed is actually scheduled for January 1st of 2021. The prior two rate increases have been done in October 1st of the 2018 and 19. And we initially anticipated doing the rate increase consistent this time as well, which is why we did the rate hearing for this evening. If the rate increase is going to be on October 1st, then it would need to be approved this evening for staff to be able to implement on that date. So, so that's what generated the discussion this evening. But as we considered the factors that have been discussed with the pandemic and other challenges that people are under, also looking at the projects that are still out on the horizon and current conditions as far as our budget goes, and all of that led us to propose a January 1st, 2021 increase. The difference between October 1st increase and a January 1st, 2021 is about $50,000 over the duration of the implementation of the rate design. So January 1st, 2021 would be the middle of our fiscal year.
So Adam, does that answer the question for you?
Yeah, that answers the question, and I think you guys delaying it till January 1st takes everything into account, and not that I have a say, but I support what you guys are doing and keeping our water utility whole.
Thank you for your input, Adam. Ed?
Just to share with Adam, and Mark helped me, but I remember the difference between pricing now for the average residential customer. The bill is going to go up $1.12 per month.
Right.
So I don't know what the garbage increase was that you guys passed, but I would think it might be akin to that or something. So I know $12 in a year's time is a lot of money to a lot of folks and stuff, but I think we've really been very considerate of that situation always.
And I see, at least coming to me, some comments from Chris Chenoweth. And Chris, are you the one that's trying to call in right now? I see a number 1-310-482-29664. Can we unmute that line possibly, Trina, if that's so? No,
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
not
in the
Chris.
water. Okay.
It's not Chris's number.
Yeah. So
Let-
caller, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute. We are in the middle of a water rate public hearing, and this is the time for public comment. So I'll ask you to unmute, and if you would like to make comment, if you could please state your name and address for the record, and then go ahead and give us your comments.
Hi, this is Brittany Ruiz.
Hi, Brittany.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Brittany, this is Mayor Hill. I just wanted to let you know that we read your statement into the record tonight, and we're in the portion of the meeting right now where we're if you have additional comments that you could make to staff or to the commission, feel free to do such.
Thank you so much. Just so you know, I was listening to the live stream, and I don't understand how that all works digitally. So I assume that you guys could see all that were on the live stream because it connects my email and all of my contact data when I subscribe to the live stream. So I apologize if I wasn't actually on the phone call, but I definitely have been listening. I think you guys have covered a lot of my concerns. But I do believe, based on input from local businesses and the community, that feels strongly that, because also how are we looking at the fee increase for these businesses, many of whom have had to shut down during this. I think the fee increase to them would be more substantial than the fee increase to just, small homes and families. So I just want to make sure I understand that we're pushing it out to January. At this point, a lot of the families are not going back to work. So I just want to make sure we're being mindful of all of that and making sure we're making, because this will now be the third increase this year when we are all deeply financially struggling. And that's not just my family, it's many families and businesses. And that's just all that I would add based on the comment, all the input from this evening. Even January, I think, is too soon. That's just my input, but that's, it's up to for all of you on the commission to decide, of course. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Brittany. Mark, would you address that this is our third increase this year? If my understanding is that this is an annual increase and we've even pushed it out a bit. Could you address that last comment that Brittany made?
Yeah, this would be the first increase for this fiscal year. We have had 2 prior increases, but they were in 2 previous fiscal years. And the rate design was set up under the assumption that we would have an annual increase. And so we would deviate slightly from the rate design in that we would not be implementing on August or October 1st. We would push that back if we were to do the January 1st date.
And Mark, if you could perhaps expand and explain how be leveled out so that we allowed ourselves to have a slight deficit the first year so we didn't have too big of an increase. If you look at the way that worked.
Yeah, so are you specifically referring to how the increase relates to our net income through the year?
Yes. So the operating income, the operating loss.
Yeah, so you can see, again, this would be on page, is it 5, I believe, of the PDF. The operating income loss for each fiscal year, you can see that represented in each of the examples. On the October 1st model, it's 124,000 loss for fiscal year 2021. So we would be operating as a loss if we were to do it on October 1st. It's a bit larger if we do it in January. Then by fiscal year 21-22, we recover and we're back positive until we get into the out years. And again, that's just with projected increases in operating expenses, we go back a bit negative in the out years.
Mark, if I may, you look at 21-22, and it shows that we have a operating income of about 57,886, but you'd indicated that by putting off of the off of the budget until January, we have a 50,000 deficit. So in reality, in fiscal year 21-22, our operating income will be about 7,800. Is that correct?
Yeah, the model shows for January 1st, if we were to do the increase of that, implement January 1st, 2021 in the second year, fiscal year 21-22, our operating income would actually be 9,970.
Okay.
So I think the point is that that Ms. Ruiz's point is something that we've kind of thought about, and we try to do that. It's not obvious from just looking at this, but we try to smooth those changes in, and we've already done that rather than try to jump it up to do what we want to do, which is to sell water at what it costs us to produce. We ease that up, and that's what we're doing.
So Tom, another thing that I think that Brittany made a good point about was to ensure that, we respond to her question about, who's paying for that line to Lafayette and making sure that our ratepayers are not doing so.
So Sam, is it appropriate for us to cover her points now so she's here and on the phone and can respond, or should we in follow-up questions, or do we have to wait according to where the hearings work?
I think it's appropriate for you to respond to her questions and answer her questions at this point. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So John, could, in follow-up to Patrick's comment, could you please explain how the Lafayette transaction works, please?
Sure. So McMinnville Water and Light funded the project, which was about 7,500 feet of 24-inch HDPE pipe. Total project cost was about $2.3 million. Of that $2.3 million, Lafayette is paying back approximately $1.5 million of that project over a 10-year period with interest. The remaining approximately $700,000 was Water and Light the cost to upsize the pipe from a 12-inch to a 24-inch pipe. McMinnville Water and Light is paying that cost based on our future plans, somewhere out 50 to 100 years, where we anticipate additional water will be needed in the area for our Willamette River project. And at that point, someone who is using that capacity would pay for that cost in that pipeline.
And John, the 12-inch that Lafayette is paying for the whole cost of the 12-inch, which is the size they chose to carry the amount of water that we might potentially sell to them. Is that right?
That is correct. Their contract is for up to 500 gallons per minute.
And in addition to paying us back for the pipe, they pay for the water, right?
They're paying for the water and the meter charge, correct. And the rate is 1.5 times our residential rate for the water.
And we're now selling them water that comes from the Coast Range, from our McGuire Reservoir and our Haskins Dam, because we're not getting any water from the Willamette at this point, right?
That's correct.
And I thought of this as a win-win. Could you talk about why this could be considered a win-win for us in Lafayette?
Well, we're selling them water, and we're selling them our surplus water. So this is basically water that we would not need at this time. And we are getting compensated for that water that we would essentially spill over our reservoir.
And is the rate more than what we charge our McMinnville customers?
Yes, the rate's 1.5 times our McMinnville residential rate.
And is that fair to Lafayette? Because this is a lot less than they could buy water anywhere else or produce it themselves anywhere else.
And that's correct. There's actually no more groundwater. Most of the groundwater in Yamhill County is already fully appropriated. So the only other source for them would be the Willamette River.
And when we do get the Willamette River source up, we would then, maybe we could talk just for a second about the two things that might happen, please.
So once we have that up, there's two options. One would be they become a supply contract where we just supply them water, or the other option is they have a buy-in to that plant at that time. And
So we would, as we spend money on this thing, to the extent that these other cities, and Lafayette is the only one signed up now, but there may be others, to the extent that they're involved, they would either buy water for us and we would charge them at that point a rate based on what it costs to produce Willamette River water, right?
correct,
Or they would buy in by paying for infrastructure and water rights that we'd already purchased or constructed. And then they would pay their share of that system, right?
that system plus the operating cost, correct.
And again, and what does McMinnville get out of this?
McMinnville gets redundancy because currently we have reservoirs in the Coast Range and 10 miles of transmission line. So we have actually no source here in town. So we get resiliency out of this project, out of the Willamette River project, and a redundant source.
And it's my understanding that we have room to expand our water treatment plant, and we've got water to run through there. But at some point in the next generation or two, we're going to run out of water capacity. Is that right?
Correct. We have, our capacity right now is 22 million gallons a day. We can expand that to 30 million gallons a day, which would be the maximum of our watershed. Our capacity on the Willamette, if you looked at all of our water rights, is about 32 million gallons a day.
Yeah, but now does that include the ones that we got when we started this that turned out are not going to be very useful at the time when you really need them?
Correct. So the two rights that were, the right we acquired in 2016 and the right we're acquiring now would add up to about 10 million gallons.
Okay, and the other, I mean, the other's there and it's a water right, but it didn't cost us very much, right?
Correct.
I mean,
It would be useful basically when fish flow targets are met.
Yeah, but we did, what our share was less than $10,000, wasn't it?
Correct. Yes.
So, and then as we sell water to Lafayette and other cities, that money can help, the money we get from them can help pay our share or the cost if we end up just selling water of this Willamette redundant system. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. I hope that's helpful. I mean, it's taken us a long time to get here, and it's taken us and it's complicated, but what we've tried to create was something that was beneficial to Water and Lights customers, both today and a generation or two ahead, and also beneficial to our neighbors.
Ed?
I just want to elaborate on one more thing Thomas said about the water. We don't sell it, it ends up in the Pacific Ocean because this is surplus water that we collect at McGuire, and we have a limitation, and there are times in the summer that we've got to dump water to make capacity for winter. And so we spent a lot of years doing this research, and for a lot of years it was a moratorium, and it's the first time we've actually wholesaled water to another city, but it's very appropriate because otherwise this water is headed out to the ocean.
And
So
we
Tom,
put a limit on the amount that we're selling under this agreement too. There's a clear limit as to what we have to sell because we don't want to give up our capacity too soon.
And McMinnville comes first if there's ever an issue.
So Tom, another question that Brittany had was regards to if we are selling water to Lafayette, why would we ever have to raise our rates? And I think that we need to talk about what the absolute value of that water that we're selling to Lafayette is and how it is relatively small compared to the capital expenses that we have in our budget.
Yes, John? Or
So we have budgeted for this fiscal year $50,000 in water sales to Lafayette. So that essentially that $50,000 does offset some of our rate increases, but it's still $50,000 out of approximately $6.5 million in income.
And so when we look at this again in a year or two, the rate study, then we'll have a better idea of what the Lafayette water is, and then that will be factored in, right?
Correct.
And John, while we're on a roll here, I'm sure that Ms. Ruiz understands that we can't control the legislature in PERS,
Correct.
unfortunately. But could you talk about one of the things we are doing, which is to try to maximize the efficiency of our employees and the size of our staff?
So yes, we've got a number of initiatives going right now. So what I can say is when we moved into our facility here in 1989, we had 60 employees and we had 8,000 electric customers and 5,000 water customers. Today we have 60 employees, 17,000 electric customers and 12,000 water customers. So we are constantly looking at staff as the second largest cost we have, first being power supply. And power supply accounts for roughly 75% of our electric cost. And then staff is number 2 at about total water and electric is about $10 million, 9 to 10.
And I've been on the commission for quite a few years. And one of the things I've always appreciated is that our general manager and our department heads have worked really hard to hire really good people and to use them really efficiently, to use people's talents so that we can serve a lot more customers and produce a lot more water and generate and sell a lot more electricity with the same number of people. And just recently you were talking about the possibility of with a credit card thing we just talked about that.
Right.
That we could end up, if we allowed credit cards, you looked at the processing time and costs, and we will save, we'll hire a half-time customer service representative rather than a full-time. So to the way that it appears to me that to the way that we do have some control, we are using our employees very efficiently, and we certainly think we should pay them well because they provide a lot of value and service to us, but we're careful about how many employees we have. And then finally, Patrick, you could ask me, or I think I know you were taking notes too, as I was, but the potential impact of the community. Maybe could you talk a little bit about what we've done and what it has cost, and one of the reasons we need this. Scott, sorry.
And one other piece, I think, because Patrick had asked a question on PERS, and I'll go back to John Dietz, that we had some contingent liability out on PERS that was being carried at the state level, if I'm not mistaken, at least 7%, and we paid that off so that we weren't paying 7% to the state. Could you update us a little bit to that, because that goes right into PERS a little bit, and that we're not carrying that additional burden there.
So Mark, if I remember right, was that about $1.6 million?
It was 1.4 right in there, 1.3, 1.4 was our portion.
And the interest rate was?
It was what PERS was charging at the time, and I think that's probably right what the mayor said. I don't remember specifically.
About 7.5 or 7.25, if I remember right, somewhere in that range. Yes.
So again,
that,
I just wanted to address that, we're doing everything in our power to control the cost of PERS that we can control with that liability that was out there. And then outside of that, then it's all legislatively mandated, and we have no control over the increases on a biennium that goes up and up and up and up.
Correct.
Thanks. I'd forgotten that, but I believe staff came to us and said, "Hey, here's this chance to save a lot of money on PERS. We can pay this off," and so we were able to. And we ended up, our PERS rates are lower now because of that. Thank you. So the last one, John, if you could talk just for a second, please, about what we've done in terms of costs we've waived and such during the pandemic. And also, I think you talked earlier about if businesses contacted you, there was a way if they had to close that they could actually save some money. And could you talk about that too, please?
Sure. So, if, you know, in the packet under the COVID update, if you look at the end of the last page, Water and Light to date, starting from March 19th, has waived approximately $246,418 in fees. Those are credit card fees, late fees, reconnect fees, delinquent processing fees. So Water and Light has absorbed all those costs. The other thing that we have done with the businesses is if the business was struggling, we offer to disconnect their service so that they did not keep incurring costs while they were closed. I believe we had 2 businesses take that opportunity, if I remember correctly.
And John, you reached out, you thought of that and then you reached out to them, right?
Correct. We actually reached out to them.
So, Ms. Ruiz, have we responded, I hope?
She's off the line now, Tom.
Okay, and do you have some questions from Chris, you said, Scott?
No, he just didn't made mention that we had indicated that on our website, there was the telephone number to call in, and he said he couldn't find that, but we gave that over the line. So that may, Trina, be something that we look at. He picked it up off of the live YouTube feed to be able to, he said it just wasn't on the, it wasn't on the website that he could find.
Well, that was great. So Chris is very tech savvy, of course. So did he want to be in the meeting, or was he just trying to help us out?
He was just trying to help us out, give us information that we could follow up on. So at this point, I don't see any additional questions from concerned citizens. I think we've done a very thorough job of answering the questions that Brittany had before us. And I think our total discussion has really been very, very complete. Now it says that someone, okay, it looks like maybe Brittany's back in the waiting room for this meeting. Okay, Brittany's back on. Or at least that.
What's her number?
Yeah, that 310 number. Brittany, any other questions that you had?
Thank you so much for asking. Sorry, somehow it said my call got disconnected, so I apologize if there's any delay there. I think that my only other question is with what Lafayette is supporting, which I really do appreciate the thoughtfulness in answering all of those questions, including PERS. And I think that's awesome that you guys were able to buy down the cost on that. I think the main thing I go back to is if Lafayette is not paying their full share now, or if they are paying for however much they are paying, how come we have a deficit, if that makes sense? We should be having a surplus. Now, obviously, we are out a lot of money for that pipe to get the water to them. I think it's, if I heard that right, it's like 1.3 million, correct me if I'm wrong, that we are still fronting. So my question is, how are we making that back, or is that over the time frame that you just clarified? But also, if we are billing Lafayette more than we are McMinnville, I'm assuming we should be seeing a surplus, not a deficit. So I guess I'm not a math major, so forgive me. I'm just trying to understand why we would have a deficit when we have just done. Is it because of the fact that we put so much money out right now, or is it because we're not seeing the full benefits of Lafayette yet? I'm just trying to understand why we have a deficit. That's all.
So I'll push that over to Mark or to John Dietz.
So I guess I can answer that is if you look at our financials, roughly we have $6.5 million in income. The amount of money that Lafayette is basically being charged for the water we estimate as $50,000
The margin.
for
No.
this year.
That's the gross.
Is that the
Sale.
growth?
Yes. So the money that we put out actually came out of our reserves. It did not come out of our operating income. So they are paying us back the $1.5 million over the 10 years plus interest. That's one piece. Then they are paying for the water that they use on a monthly basis. That's the other piece. That money is 1.5 times our rate. So if they wanted to offset our rates to our McMinnville customers, they would have to take significantly more water to do that. And we're only budgeting for $50,000 in income from Lafayette.
John, could you just clarify how much Lafayette is paying us back of the construction cost? Because I thought you said earlier we were paying for the oversized pipe because we're going to get that money back later from us.
Correct.
The
So
customer.
Lafayette's paying us back about just a little over $1.5 million over 10 years with interest. The interest for this year was 3.3%, which is 2% above the local government investment pool rate of 1.3, which actually I think just dropped after we did this. It went to 1. So they are paying us 2% more than what we would gain on our investments. So that's one area where we gain income from Lafayette. The other is the sales of the surplus water.
And the investment income we don't use that on rates, right? That's a non-operating income that we then use for our capital costs, right?
Correct.
And
Yes.
the other part of it is that not only is the $50,000, a small portion of our income, so it's not enough to offset other things, but we're still trying to overcome a deficit that if you look at that we came because we didn't raise rates immediately. We wanted to smooth them in for our customers, right?
Correct.
So it's not that we were at even and then Lafayette, we have another 50,000 from Lafayette that truly doesn't cost us that much money to produce the water. The problem is we were in a hole and we're still in a hole even with that, right?
Correct.
And the reason we're in a hole is that we last rate design, we discovered we needed more income, but we didn't want to hit people with it right away.
So that's why we spread the rate increase over 5 years at 3%. Otherwise, we would have had a significant rate increase up front to make up that deficit. But the commission chose to spread that over multiple years.
And that's because, and from my viewpoint, it was because we realized we'd built up these reserves, we had them for a future use, and that it was the fair thing to do to the present customers to spread that out a little bit.
Correct.
And as the financials show in the budget, that we will recoup and not be losing money in 2022, 2023.
Correct. So it's a multiple year
Gain back, yeah.
right.
And then we will look at this again. So the next time we do a rate study, we'll have information about what Lafayette's going to take and what we'll project, and then we'll know, because what they pay us depends on what they take, which depends partly, I think, on how hot the summer is.
Correct. And so that'll be scheduled for next fall when we do the next rate study.
So Brittany, did that answer, again, these are technical things that we're looking at, and as you say, somewhat kind of hard to find a follow on the financials, but do you see why we're still losing money, and our intent is not to have jumped that up to 7-8% early on, but to keep that at a manageable level for the families in McMinnville?
I have no problem with Mr. Dietz, but I do appreciate you guys going in depth and answering those questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those. Thank you for the questions that you had. It gives us an opportunity to explain a little more in detail for those that would be on the line, which are not many, but that are able to watch us at a later time. So, Brittany, thank you. And I'll ask if there are any other questions that you might have.
Not me directly. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
It's helpful for us to have input from the public and to be able to explain these things.
Okay, and so I'll go back to Mark. Any last final comments that you would have for the commission?
Yes, just again, I guess to kind of share final thoughts just from me based on the financial analysis that was provided and then also as updated this evening and displayed. It's staff's opinion that the proposed water rate increases, that they're necessary to provide the adequate receipts for the maintenance operation of the system and maintain adequate reserves for contingency and contemplated additions and improvements and extensions to the water system. So effectively to maintain a solid position for our operations and adequate reserves for capital. And so the attached water rate schedules and resolutions, they're indicating effective January 1st, 2021 date, but as mentioned earlier, that date could be changed if directed by the commission.
And Mr. Mayor, excuse me. So Mr. Mayor, before you close the record, I assume you're about you're reaching about that point maybe.
Okay.
But I would just ask that maybe Mr. Dunbar just review the matters or the items that are in the record and just make sure we have all the items in the record.
So in the record,
Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
yeah, in the record, we have the rate design by Utility Financial Solutions. We have the rate increase analysis and its effective date, I'm sorry, its effect on the 2021 budget with the 4 dates that were analyzed, specifically October 1st of 2020, January 1st of 2021, April 1st of 2021, and July 1st of 2021. And we also reviewed the update to that, and so that will be included. Capital cost drivers for the rate increase recommendation, rate comparison information for both our current rates and then the proposed rate increase and how that compares to other utilities around us, and then changes to the water rate schedules that would implement the 3rd year of the rate design, and specifically those schedules, those 4 schedules, W1, 2, 3, and 4, as redlined versions, and then the resolution that would adopt the rates and set forth the rates in those rate schedules with the increases in there clean.
We'd also offer Ms. Ruiz's written comments in the record.
Right, that were read in. Right. And so that takes us, if I'm not mistaken, to commission deliberation. And we've had a lot of discussion, but any further deliberation among the commission tonight? Ed?
Mayor, I just like to make one comment, and just it's maybe a different way to look at McMinnville, but it's all about the comparison of the cost of water a resident in McMinnville pays as compared to our neighbors that are close by. It runs anywhere from $13.50 up to almost $81 more per month with some of the small cities that are close by us. So if you want to look at how we compare to other cities in our own area, very, very, very fortunate how inexpensive our water is as compared to Carlton's at $120 a month, where we're at $38.61. And the quality of our water we have compared to some of the folks who are taking water out of the river and well water and that. And we have a water source throughout the year. Carlton has been on intermediate water different times and that. So just it's one way to look at it, that we have kept this rate really, really low.
And I think it's important that we continue to do that, and that's why I think it's important that we set rates that will, recover the cost of water for the people that use them. And we also plan for future things with our capital improvements so that the next generation can hopefully enjoy low rates too. One thing I remember that we talked about a long time ago when you and I sort of led the charge to get the water rates, the operating costs and the operating revenue to be much closer than they were at the time, was that if we charged way less than what it costs to produce the water, we're encouraging people to waste water.
Mhm.
And that has a couple of problems. The main one of which is, as you have to expand your system, it gets much more expensive. So it's better to send the correct price signals, I think. So
The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the infrastructure that we have built and maintained has some offsets that most people don't realize. And we enjoy extremely low fire insurance rates here in McMinnville. Cities are rated by the Insurance Services Organization. We have one of the highest ratings there is, which consequently gets when you're covering fire insurance on your home, it's really inexpensive compared to other areas that don't have, say, fire hydrants like we do, or water flows that we are able to provide. That's a big offset that most people don't realize.
yeah, I remember we did a loop, I think it was out on 3 Mile Lane. We did a loop that had the effect of improving our fire rating. Remember, it was
Correct.
about 15 years ago or so, maybe 20.
So Tom, kind of to Brittany's point on what Lafayette's doing, I just got feedback from a Lafayette resident, and to kind of show, while they're appreciative of the ability to get that water and not have restrictions, that $1.3 million construction is, not free. And so they're seeing an average of maybe $40 a month increase on their water bills, which to me is extraordinary. And that's an additional burden for them. They, obviously don't have many options, but it certainly shows also how fortunate we are in McMinnville.
Yeah, and I think our staff worked hard to reduce the cost of that intertie pipeline. The money was spent to get our water to them, the pipeline to do it. And I think that our staff worked hard with the contractor and the engineers to do that the least expensive way, consistent with the quality and reliability of our system.
Project came under budget also.
Yeah, we did a good job, but I mean, it comes down to arithmetic. You have only so many residents in Lafayette.
No, you're right. And that's why it was important to me always that it be a win-win, that they're better off. And I hear you. Hard to pay those kind of rates. It would.
Yeah.
One of the things that the citizens in Lafayette had this summer was water all summer long, as compared to previous years when they go into rationing. So that's been a big deal.
Thank you for the discussion. So we have completed our deliberation. Are we in a position to act on the resolution and the rates?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay.
Ready?
Sam, have we covered everything we need to cover?
Yes, I believe you have, and I understand we went through and established the record, and it was closed, and the commission has deliberated. We do have a resolution prepared with rates effective January 1 of 2021. And when you're ready, I can read that by title.
Okay, I'll ask one more time from the commission, any questions or any items?
No.
Okay, then go ahead and read the resolution by title only.
This is resolution number 2020-24, a resolution by the City of McMinnville, a municipal corporation of the state of Oregon, acting by and through its Water and Light Commission, establishing water rates, customer charges, and fees.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I would so move.
Second.
And a motion by Mr. Gormley and a second by Mr. Fuchs. Trina, would you poll the commission?
Mayor Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Takersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gormley,
Yes.
Commissioner Fuchs,
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
And so resolution 2020-24 passes unanimously 5-0. And that takes us out of our public hearing and brings us back to additional items of new business. Again, thank you for that complete discussion and the preparation that the staff had for us to be able to have us be able to go through that. Our next item is the annual review of our investment policy. And Mark, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you. So before you this evening is the, as mentioned, the annual review of the investment policy. The policy requires that the commission readopt the policy even if no changes are made. No changes are proposed at this time. Back in February of this year, the policy was amended at that time to include investments in U.S. Treasuries as an option. Because of the low yields, staff has not looked at doing that and doesn't propose making any changes to the policy at this time. Also included in the staff report is a review of the fourth quarter investment summary showing our investments for the quarter. And that's also been edited to show the a summary for the year, the annual results for the year down at the bottom. And this will continue as part of a quarterly report. So it'll be kind of an ongoing view of the year as it progresses, completing with the fourth quarter of each fiscal year like this. So, and that will fulfill the requirement that's in the investment policy that the commission is apprised of the performance of the portfolio for the year, which was missing. So I apologize for that. So we discussed that at the last commission meeting and that change was made. So.
And so, Mark, to that point, do I understand our intermediate fund rate over the last quarter brought us back 1.49%?
That's right, I believe. I've got to find that on here.
At the very bottom of the last report.
Yes.
Okay.
1.55%.
Oh, okay.
So this is a resolution again.
It is, Ed.
Okay.
And so any further discussions of Mark with the commission?
No.
Okay, then I will ask Sam to read resolution, and we'll get the resolution number by title only.
This is resolution 2020-25, a resolution adopting an investment policy for surplus funds of the city of McMinnville, a municipal corporation of the state of Oregon, acting by and through its Water and Light Commission.
Thank
So
you,
move
Sam.
for approval.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Ed and seconded by Tom. And so we'll have Trina poll the commission.
Mayor Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gormley,
Yes.
Commissioner Fuchs,
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
And so resolution 2020-25 passes unanimously 5-0. That'll take us to our next item under new business, and that's an amendment to intergovernmental agency on the 3 Mile Lane Bridge. And we'll have James and Scott address us with a staff report.
Good evening. So Oregon Department of Transportation is currently in the works of replacing that 3 Mile Bridge. So construction is supposed to start in 2021 and be completed in 2023. This IGA would be the second IGA between the city and McMinnville Water and Light. Back in March of 2018, McMinnville and the city entered into an IGA by which the city agreed to act on the behalf of McMinnville Water and Light and itself in this contracting for engineering services and design. The city portion for this project, this is the city of McMinnville's portion of the project, includes a 16-inch ductile iron sewer force main, McMinnville Water and Lights portion includes a 12-inch ductile iron water main, 4 4-inch diameter steel conduits for power, and 2 2-inch diameter conduits for fiber optics, all of which are part of the project. So with the commencement of the design being completed, so we're at the point now where the designer has completed, we're near the final stages of it. We're going to be entering in the back up in December here, we'll be going out to bid. So this IGA is between McMinnville Water and Light for engineering construction support in the field. So you're talking like the RFIs, submittals, and then also inspection services on the bridge. McMinnville's water share in this piece is $85,135, and the city share is approximately $72,463. This is basically for ODOT. This is a kind of a joint project between ODOT, McMinnville Water and Light, and the city here. So we'll have our staff out there doing inspections outside of the bridge, but everything on the bridge will be performed by the consultant. So these are for special inspections and for the things like the hangers on the bridge and the pipe and so forth. So we'll be looking to come to commission probably in the spring with a third IGA for construction services. So at that point, I can open it up for questions. If you have any questions on this, if you need more detail, let me know.
Any questions for James? Again, we've been over this before, and it's just the process that we go through. So, but any questions?
Real quickly,
Go ahead.
is $85,000 an appropriate price to basically oversee the construction for us?
Yes.
Okay.
So do you want more detail on that?
Yeah, a little, yeah, a little bit, please.
Okay. So in regards to the bridge is going to be approximately 180 feet long. We have 12-inch.
Do you mean 1,000 feet long?
It's going to be approximately 980 feet long, I was told. We're going to be installing 1,500 feet of water main, along with the steel conduits and so forth. So on the bridge itself, it's going to take special inspections from structural engineers for the hangers. We have special joints for the water mains, and then also for flexibility and so forth. So that piece there, that 85,000 comes in for all the structural components, all the mechanical pieces to it, and then the pipe submittal. So I think that's a fair number there. I'm going to remind you, it is a time and materials, so we may not use it all, but that's something just in case something comes up, we have some money there.
But James, excuse me.
I think it's more than reasonable given the fact that it is a bridge.
Excuse me. This is not for the hangers themselves or the pipe itself, right? It's just for monitoring the installation and doing inspections and testing?
It is. It's for special inspections. So that has nothing to do with material costs. It has to do with having a structural engineer on site to review and see. They'll come on site for special inspections. And it also has to do with they're also overseeing the contract.
So when this bids, one of the line items will be the crossings, and they'll probably segregate electrical, phone, and water. So this is the water is for our benefit, and we need to make sure in our protect our interests, which means we should be inspecting stuff. The bridge is a real precarious place to be installing in that. So I think it's very appropriate. And based on the volume of the project and the problems you have with the fact that in order to have access to inspecting that, you're going to be, probably harnessed up and hanging sometimes there's no walkway to necessarily come and inspect all this. So I think it's well within reason.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
I want to add one last thing. We're going to be eliminating approximately 100 or 1,500 feet of cast iron pipe with this project as well. So there's some benefit there in getting rid of some of that cast in our system.
Oh, no, I know we should do this. The only question is the cost. No, I agree.
Exactly. Yeah, if it makes it feel any better, looking back at other projects, this project, the engineering services, when I was going through the numbers here, it's actually less than what they've been in the past.
Okay, good.
I felt pretty comfortable with it, working with Mike Bissett over at the city and going through the numbers. I felt pretty comfortable with how they came up with these.
Great. Okay. Thank you, James.
James, we abandoned our, once we had the new construction completed, we abandoned the river crossing and all that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, we are looking at this intergovernmental agreement, the 3 Mile Lane Bridge. Any further?
No, ready to vote.
Comments? Okay, well, it's a resolution, and so Sam, do you want to read it by title only?
Yes, I'll do that. This is resolution number 2020-26, a resolution authorizing and approving an intergovernmental agreement between the city of McMinnville and the city of McMinnville acting by and through its Water and Light Commission regarding construction of utilities on the 3 Mile Lane Bridge.
I'll move for adoption.
Second.
It's been moved by Ed, seconded by Tom. All in favor of, okay. And so let's go ahead and have Trina poll the commission on resolution 2020-26. Go ahead.
Mayor Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gormley,
Yes.
Commissioner Fuchs,
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-26 passes unanimously. That takes us to our last new business this evening, an amendment number 2 to subgrant agreement for the CARES Act through the city of McMinnville. This is our second amendment, so we've been through one of those before. And so Mark, we'll turn it over to you to make the staff presentation.
So with the COVID-19 pandemic continuing, we have continued to generate costs that are eligible for reimbursement through the state's coronavirus relief fund. We found out early in the process when we submitted our first reimbursement request that Water and Light was not eligible to go directly to the coronavirus relief fund because we were not a municipality standalone, and we also were not a special district. We're a municipal utility, and so as such, we needed to work with the city and become a grantee of the city to be able to submit reimbursement requests. And so that was done, and we've actually submitted 2 requests to date, totaling about $57,000, and have been we've received funds back from the city after they received those funds from the coronavirus relief fund. So what's before you this evening is expenses through August 31st. And these expenses are more, they total $126,000. And that's driven largely by payroll expenses that had not been claimed from the beginning of the pandemic. They were expenses that are related to largely the crews being having gone home, been directed to be home, to provide, I guess the best way, social distancing in a way that if there was an outbreak on one of our crews, we would have the other crew available to be able to come in and immediately replace them. And so we did that early on for a good period of time. And so now we're requesting those reimbursement costs. And then the other part of it that makes up another good chunk of it is the processing charges for the credit card, since we're not passing that on to customers through the pandemic. So these expenses would be Exhibit 2B as amended in the contract amendment number 2, or the subgrant agreement amendment number 2. And so that's what's before the commission this evening, is to consider this. If approved, it would then go to the city, and the city would need to submit that on our behalf. So,
As we did with number 1, amendment number 1, correct, Mark?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, both the original agreement and the amendment to it, both of those 2 expense requests were submitted to the city and reimbursed to us from the city through the relief funds that they received from the coronavirus fund.
Thank you, Mark. Any further questions of staff? Seeing none, this is a resolution, and so Sam, could you read the resolution? And I'm guessing it's 2020-27 by title only.
That's correct. Resolution number 2020-27, a resolution authorizing approving amendment number 2 to sub-grant agreement between the city of McMinnville and the city of McMinnville acting by and through its Water Light Commission to provide funding from the CARES Act grant.
Move for adoption?
And a second?
Well, second.
It's been moved by Ed and seconded by Jody. Trina, can you poll the commission?
Mayor Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gormley,
Yes.
Commissioner Fuchs,
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
And so resolution 2020-27 passes unanimously. That takes us through our new business this evening. We are this evening going to be going into executive session, and after executive session, we'll be coming back for general manager comments and commissioner comments. And so Trina, could you get us prepared to go into executive session?
Sure. This first executive session will be pursuant to ORS 192-6602F to consider information and records that are exempt from public disclosure under ORS 192-501 subsection 23 relating to identifying security measures, individual, building, and information processing.
Okay, we have taken a few people